Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everyone. What a story we have to tell you today. And it's one of inspiration that can be the pinnacle point of moving your life forward based on how he helps others. This is a gentleman who is blind, has had cancer, chronic pain, went through a divorce. He's had financial hardships, heart problems, and today he's a Messianic rabbi. He's a motivational speaker. He's an author. He's a mentor. And we're going to talk with him and learn about these challenges and how that can help us overcome the challenges in our life. Rabbi Jeff Grillo joins us here on the program. Jeff, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing excellent, Steve. Thank you so much. It's great to be here with you today.
It's great to have you here. And wow, what a roller coaster ride it has been for you in your life. And normally when we have somebody on, I wait later to talk about their story. Normally we just talk about, what their book or if they're coaching services or whatever it might be, but your story is so impactful. Was there one point in your life that you would say that was harder than the other? And you look back, it was like, whoa, that was a tough one to get through. Anything that really stands out as a more major challenge than the other ones?
Man, that is a great question. And they've all been pretty cataclysmic at the moments that you're going through them. Of course, my loss of my eyesight has been, without a doubt, has been the most daunting to overcome and to deal with on a day-to-day basis. I was diagnosed up in Boston when I was 5. My parents were told I wouldn't see anything past age 18. Thankfully, they were wrong. I was able to drive up until I was 30 years old, some 20, almost 25 years ago now. And it's highly questionable whether I should have been driving, but thankfully it worked out. I get to have the experience. Didn't hurt anybody, didn't hurt myself. But that was hard. The cancer was probably more of a gut punch. The eyesight, it was hereditary. My grandfather had it. I knew, when I started becoming a teenager, that was likely going to be the path that I'd have to travel. So that I had a lot of time to prepare for, but nothing prepares you at age 21 for, that, Mr. Grillo, I'm afraid you're looking at the worst case scenario. I had not one, but 2 forms of malignant cancer at the same time, germ cell seminoma and bronchial carcinoma, which at the time, I didn't know this at that time. I knew it was horrible and it was bad. I knew they wanted to get me started right away, but the bronchial carcinoma back then had a 90% kill rate. You just didn't know you had it till it was too late. And I had 2 forms to deal with at the same time. And at 21, the cliche is, these kids, they don't know nothing. They think they're going to live forever. And I was certainly in that camp. I mean, you can get your whole life ahead of you. And to have that all of the sudden realization that, oh my goodness, this could be it. I might be dying. And it woke me up. And I think that was probably the catalyst down the road. It took some time. I had to go through surgery and I had to go through a couple months, pretty aggressive combination chemotherapy. Kind of got me to death's door a few times, which I guess is the concept behind chemotherapy. They get you as sick as they can and as close to death, knowing that there's more healthy cells than unhealthy cells. And then they kind of nurse you back. And like I said, it wasn't until after I was volunteering years later at the Cancer Institute in Tampa where I was treated. And I saw my doctor and I was telling him, oh man, I can't seem to get married. I don't have life insurance. I can't get life insurance. And he just kind of laughed and he said, man, you better just invest really well. I'm like, what are you talking about? He said, Jeff, there's no survivors from what you had. He said, you're literally writing the book on this one. And I determined during that time, I said, you know what? I am not going through all of these things in my life for nothing. Somebody's going to get something out of it. I've never meant it in the sense that, oh, I'm going to write books, I'm going to make money. It's not about that. I just always have felt that there has to be a purpose behind thing. I'm a man of faith, and I believe that all things work together for good. For those of us who love the Lord and are called according to His purposes. Romans 8:28. Anybody taking notes? but that's just my worldview, and so I determined that somehow I'm going to get the message out there. And I want to be an encouragement to people going through horrible ordeals, whether it's cancer. Heaven forbid somebody has to go through that. I didn't have health insurance at the time. I was 6 figures in debt at 21 years old because of the surgery and the chemotherapy and the hospital bills and the ER visits in between. Because every time they send you home, 24, 48 hours, later, I'm going right back in with horrible infections, and ultimately that led to a divorce and just one thing after another, and the eyesight. And I just said, that's it. I spoke to an aunt of mine who used to be a journalist up in New York City, and I told her, like, how do you write a book? What's the process? And she was great, man. She said, Jeffrey, you have a wonderful story to tell, but don't rush it. One day the book will beg to be written. And it seemed so bizarre at the time when beg to be written. And I just kind of shrugged it off. And I made several attempts over the years to write. And I'd get a chapter or so into it. I'm kind of reading through. I'm like, this is horrible. I don't even want to read this. And I'd toss it out, was just discouraged. And then one day, and I think it was 2008, something hit me. Like, I've got to write this book. And in about a 2-week period, Power and Perseverance, my first book was born, so to speak, and got that one out there, and just door after door kept opening up. I did a lot of television on various networks, mostly Christian broadcasting type outlets. Did radio, secular and Christian as well. I did kinds of magazine articles and podcast interviews and you name it. Just door after door just kept opening. And I just remember just sitting there during my first television interview, sweating half to death because I was, was a radio DJ for about 7 years or so, in much smaller markets than you're in. But the TV was definitely a different animal, especially for a visually impaired guy. It's definitely uncomfortable, not knowing how to, exactly where to look. Like now, I'm just staring at a bright light. That's all I know. But I just had that realization that, wow, this is really happening. This is what it's all about. The door is opening, and it's able to tell my story and hearing accounts through email and people. It's just the weirdest thing, going to speak at a church and somebody comes up to me, hey, I heard your book. I'm like, really? That's great,
Wow.
and just hearing neat testimonies of how people's lives are changed, and just because they were able to read my story, and it's a privilege, it's an honor, and it's just kind of still blows my mind every day.
You've been through, and thank you for sharing that. You've been through so much. Do you feel that things happen for a reason?
Well, yeah. I mean, let's be realistic. There's some things that happen for reasons that are completely on us and completely our fault, or things that we contribute to with bad choices. And I'm guilty of a lot of that. But my kind of life experience shows that also there's things that I've had nothing to do with. Being born with a hereditary degenerative retina condition, I had nothing to do, so far as I know, that to cause 2 forms of what was testicular cancer, and things happen, and I really do think they happen for a reason, and the reason, the best that I can come up with, is that it's all part of our purpose. I could have, and it comes down to the choices that we make. So I could have just chosen to be bitter like so many, and cynical like so many of my friends that are blind and have different vision issues, right? And I could have just, as one friend of mine said, man, Jeffrey, you're trying too hard. Just get your guitar and sit on the porch and have some fun and just live, man. I'm like, I can't do that. That there has to be meaning to everything. And I'm just on this quest to figure that out. Like, why did I do this? I don't believe in a vengeful, angry God that's up there with his thumb on us, just trying to punish us. I think everything has a purpose. And I don't know. Who knows? Maybe I agreed to this. At some point, I'm on my way being sent here. That this was the mission, and whether that's a thing or not. The point is, I'm here, and it's a choice, and my choice is that I'm not going to be miserable. I'm not going to be an angry person. I'm not going to be defeated. I'm not going to amount to nothing. I'm not going to be sad and depressed. I'm going to make the most of it, and I'm going to push on. This actually just popped into my head. It's a secular song by Queensryche called "Best I Can." I think is the name of the book, the song, and it has got to be to this day one of the most inspirational songs I've ever heard. And obviously, my preference is toward the Christian and the Messianic genre, but there's something so powerful about that song, and familiar with the song. It's all about a person who finds himself in a wheelchair, and how he's not going to be defeated. He's determined to be the best he can. He's got a vision. He has a hope, and he's going to make it happen. And that's kind of fueled the fire in me probably since the 90s when that song came out, I think, or maybe late 80s. But whatever the case is, it's just part of the story now. I will not go to my grave having been selfish or a quitter or taking things with me. I'm kind of leave it all in the field kind of guy. And if it amounts to something great and wonderful, then wow, that's satisfying, and it's worth all of the struggle. And if it doesn't, you know what? It's still worth the struggle, because it makes us better. And in a world like we're in today, my goodness, and I don't care what side of a political aisle people are on. I don't care who they're rooting for. It doesn't matter to me. But you cannot be intellectually honest and look at what's happening in the world and think things are going well. It's a scary world out there. There's a lot of problems, a lot of looming and impending, doom and gloom kind of scenarios, economically in every way. And I feel privileged. I feel blessed that I feel almost like an Esther, in the Bible. I'm here for such a time as this. That if ever a message like I'm blessed to have, it is more necessary than now. I don't know. It's time, and I'm just excited and thrilled to be able to share that here with you today.
Were you ever at a point and by the way, your book is called The Excuse Assassin. Love the title. And essentially destroying the enemy that stands between you and your goals. It's kind of what we're talking about here today. You live this life. And many of us just instinctively gravitate into a victim mentality, and sometimes we get stuck there. Was there a moment in your life when this came and that came, financial hardship, divorce, cancer, your blindness, all of that going on, a moment where you said, why me? Why me? Why do I have to deal with all this?
Was there a moment? No, there was not a moment. There was 1.5 million of those moments.
Okay,
So
all right.
it's. I mean, now there's not so much. Now I get it. Now I understand why. But man, as a teenager, in my 20s, and even into my early 30s, I asked that question often. Not in a pity party kind of way, although I am good for maybe 1 or 2 of those in a year.
And we, by the way, we all need them.
Yeah, and I heard somebody say that heads that leak don't get too big. So my head leaks and tears at least a couple times a year. In all honesty, but yeah, why me? But somebody I remember, and I feel like this was a lesson I learned maybe in my teenage years. One of those times where I verbalized the whole why me. And I think it may have been my first pastor, when I was 18. I remember correctly. But when I said, why me? And I just remember him very thoughtfully said, yeah, why you? Well, why not you? And if not you, then who do you recommend? And even as a kid, I was just like, wow. It just hit me. It's like, wow,
How do
you
you
would
answer
never,
that? That's a good one. That's a
yeah,
good one.
you could never wish these things on anybody. I mean, a sane and right and decent person would never wish blindness or cancer or divorce or any other thing on another fellow human being. We're all brothers and sisters, like it or not. We're all part of the same family, right?
Sure.
Same human race. Um, so yeah, I've kind of gone through that, and on rare occasions, in all honesty, I still have those moments. But then I'm always reminded, especially with this latest book, The Excuses, asking, what is my purpose? My purpose is to be able to hang out with people like you, and not to supply to you, but if you were to complain to me, man, I can't do this, and I'm having trouble with that, and really, you're going to have a conversation like that with a person like me, a blind guy that's able to do all these things, not because I'm great, not because I'm awesome, not because I'm anything necessarily special, but I'm just one determined dude that's just not going to give up. I don't know. I think that's where the title comes from. I'm kind of out there assassinating people's excuses. Like, if I can do this stuff, what can you do, Steve? What can the person watching this or listening to this on the podcast who's struggling with things, who's never been through cancer, who isn't blind, who has all of their faculties, maybe just be in a tough spot with difficult decisions and horrible challenges that they're facing, and things that seem insurmountable in their lives. And yes, when you're in that moment, they can seem overwhelming, but I'm here to tell people, look at me. If I'm able to do it, what can you do? I submit you can do what I've done and so much more. You just gotta, again, make the decision. It's all about decisions.
What do you think is holding us back from realizing our dreams, our goals? Is it essentially fear?
I was just gonna say it's that four-letter word, everybody.
Mm,
It's fear. It's fear. But what? Because it's the what if monster, right? It's under everybody's bed. Man, what if I don't measure up? What if I don't get that promotion? What if my wife, is disappointed in me? What if I don't realize this goal or that goal? What if I don't put away enough for retirement? What if? And it can paralyze, people. But I like to look at life with that what if question, but in a positive way. It's like, well, what if I don't quit? What if I keep pressing on? What if I try one more time? What if, it's a matter of perspective. We can focus on the problem, or we can focus on the goal, the desired outcome, whatever you want to call it. We can focus on goodness, or we can focus on the dark stuff. And again, and the way the world is anymore, we need everybody to stop focusing on the dark stuff and push towards fixing things.
do you think that many of us focus on the dark stuff, the negative stuff, just because we're programmed that way? But it's almost I look at it when a baby's born, two babies are born, assuming they're healthy. They come from different ethnic backgrounds, economic, all that. They're the same. They can be different colors. They're the same, but then they experience life. And part of that is the negativity. A baby walks up to, finally can walk, walks up to the kitchen table. Oh, salt and pepper shaker. Whoa, that's really cool. Let me just grab that. And mom or dad says, hey, no, 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 but put that back. Don't, no, 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 no. There's a lot of no. So it's almost like we're wired to be negative. Um, why are we negative? I look at it that way, but I don't really
Yeah,
know if that's the answer.
and I don't know that I have the answer. Just again, my worldview and perspective, and having been part of media for a short time, is this doesn't apply as a blanket to all media, but so much of today's media,
Mm.
whether it's network TV or radio, whether it's podcast or streams or YouTube, or the dreaded Facebook, I think is probably the biggest. And I'm on Facebook, and we use Facebook for our church, and it's a wonderful outlet and a tool. But the idea is there's just too much negative. We're just taking it in all the time. Negativity in songs. And yes, there's positive songs out there, but it seems like a lot of the popular stuff. It's I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old too. It's just a lot of trash, and we feed on that.
Mm.
And garbage in, garbage out. It produces fruit. So as for me in my house, we have it all turned off. I don't even listen to the radio anymore, other than on my Radio app. I'm a bit of a news junkie still, and I feel like I have to keep up with things for ministry to know kind of what's going on in the world. But if I'm listening to music, I've songs I've downloaded, songs that from whatever. It's just we don't watch TV unless hey, let's watch a movie, and
Sure.
a 20-year-old and a 15-year-old, and it's terrible. Like, you want to watch movies, but some of the things that were permissible in my life growing up, and some of the movies that I thought were funny and great, and that just not much good in them. And we use a subscription called VidAngel, so we can at least filter out language that we find objectionable, or
Sure.
inappropriate scenes, or whatever. It's just too much garbage. And it's the evidence to me that it's a consequence of having too much. I think in this country we're blessed, and that's not a bad thing, but it's almost too much, because you hear about, and I remember when I had sight, being able to see videos in like third world countries. These people that have nothing, these kids that have nothing, they're literally, a missionary will show up with a soccer ball. That's
Yeah.
it. And the kids would just light up, and they just had so much joy. And these people living in abject poverty, and they got smiles on their faces.
Oh, I'm right there
Why?
with you. I've been to other
Yeah.
countries, Caribbean nations, and
Mhm.
I was there working, but I went with a coworker whose husband writes children's books. So we brought some books and we brought some pencils. The pencils alone
Mhm.
were like $1 million lottery was just won. We're just about out of time. The Excuse Assassin. Who should read that book?
Anybody that is struggling with the challenges of life, that's having a hard time, whether it's financial or emotional or relational, or at the job, or whatever, just trying to figure out yourself and your way, and you need a little help. Again, nothing like a good kind of shame. Hey, this blind guy can do it, man. It would pump people up, and I highly recommend. I mean, I think it's a good read for anybody. Even people that have it together, it's always good. I like to read biographies and things of people just as role models. One of my favorite authors and speakers, Zig Ziglar, once said something I live by. He said, "When life knocks you down, land on your back, because if you can look up, you can get up." And that's I'd like to think that there's some lessons like that in the book, and that can be found at my website. It's just my name, jeffgrillo.com. That's JEFFGRILLO.com. That takes you to different social medias, other links. The two books that are available, there's two more on the way. Probably over the course of the next year will be released, and it'd be a great resource for people. And also there's a Calendly there, so if people wanted to contact me, to see if we could schedule something on the mentor side of things, or to come speak at an event. I've spoken at a lot of churches and different corporate events, so that's available there. Phone number as well.
Your book is inspirational, and it's real because you've lived through so many challenges, and now you're helping others push through overwhelming circumstances. So fantastic. Jeff Grillo, GRILLO.com is the website. Check out the book. I love the name. It just, and the cover art is fantastic. The Excuse Assassin. Jeff, thank you so much for being here today, sharing your story and inspiring us. Really appreciate it.
A privilege and honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.